Hi, I'm Mitu. I'm a programmer and designer, and I run what is ostensibly a one-person micro studio called The Tiniest Shark. I made a game called Red Shirt, which is this satirical sci-fi social networking simulation game. I say ostensibly one person because I didn't make Red Shirt alone, of course. I had help from some wonderful artists without whom it would never have got past the placeholder art stage, and the talented musician, and the voiceover artist, and the friends who helped with writing content when I was knee-deep in making sure the scroll bars worked properly. And that's not even mentioning the emotional support of my husband, of my parents, and my friends who understood every time I'd have to rearrange hanging out with them because something was on fire. And unless you're someone with an absolutely unprecedented level of talent and bottomless emotional strength, no developer is an island. But you probably know this. You know this because you're here at the 2015 Global Game Jam, and you're ready to work with the talented people who are also here. You know this because you all showed up. You're here on the ground, and really showing up is half the battle. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm incredibly honoured to be one of the keynote speakers for the Global Game Jam. But because you all showed up, I will be completely truthful when I say this. There is probably nothing I can tell you that you don't already know. I could tell you why games are so important, why they have so much potential, why they belong on the same cultural platforms as movies and literature and theatre and visual art. I do those talks to the public from time to time because I believe advocacy for games and what they are and what they could be is so important. But you probably believe these things about games too, and you are awesome because you've showed up with this commitment to making a game, to doing something hopefully a bit different, whether this is your first ever game jam and you've never made a game before, or whether you're someone who's been in the industry for 15 years. Again, there's nothing I can tell you that you don't already know. Let's leave potential aside then. What I can do is tell you why I love games, in the here and now, and what games mean to me. This is where I grew up, 10 minutes from the sea. I've always loved the sea. When I was very little, the sea meant all of this possibility. I would dream about all the places it could take me. I loved the sea for the same reasons I loved space later. The seemingly infinite, the places which make you remember that you are infinitely tiny and unimportant, and that's okay, because that's what makes life so precious. I came to realise later that this definitely affected the way I think about and make video games. That we're tiny, but we're all so connected to one another more than we know. And the things we do matter. And so, a lot, not all of the games I aspire to make, are about this slow bombardment of opportunities for self-reflection. Places in video games have made me feel that way too. Tiny, I mean. I remember, for instance, a sense of wonder when I played my first MMO, EverQuest, of being in this huge world which seemed to live and breathe without me, and it was full, absolutely full of people. Of course, there's no one here now, but I have stories. And really, that's what it's about to me, the stories, the connections we make. I grew up playing video games with my family and my little sisters, and the thing I love is that no matter the game, it's about the unique stories you craft between you and your friends, or between you and the system, or you with yourself. Every time we play, there's some unique story we create, no matter why else we may be playing, whether it's about control or challenge or just out of pure kinesthetic pleasure. I love creating. I've loved making things, digital things, since I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I taught myself to write HTML. I was hooked on being able to make things, interactive things for my friends to look at and mess about with. There's something to it that's addictive and beautiful, crafting things, spinning things from inert code which becomes something else, comes alive on the screen. To me, it feels magical. And games are the best place for that magic, to express ideas through the code you've spun. My earliest understanding of all this came, I realised, not from Will Wright or Sid Meier, but from early 90s Nickelodeon show Clarissa Explains It All, in which 13-year-old girl Clarissa Darling would seemingly, in just a few hours, make a game to both figure out and express to others how to deal with her bratty little brother Ferguson. I like to think that Clarissa not only paved the way years and years in advance for the amazing plethora of indie games about personal experiences that we now see, but also I think she basically invented game jams. But I have a confession to make. For a while, as I saw the amazing, beautiful, expressive work that was being done around me, I was honestly too scared to put my own work out there. And so I'd make these little barely finished games in private and show them to no one. Or worse, and far more often, not even build out my ideas in case by doing so I'd prove to myself that they weren't worth it. And you know what? It didn't make me happy. I'm not a writer, but one of the most important moments of my creative life came a few years ago when I read this agony aunt column. It's by a writer responding to another writer who's been besieged by this all-encompassing sense of creative angst, of all the things they feel like they could do, but they're too afraid to because the things they come out with aren't good enough. Honestly, I think it applies to all creative disciplines. The agony aunt's advice in her amazing, colourfully worded column came down to this. We get the work done on the ground level, with humility and with surrender. And reading this cemented for me what made me the happiest, creating fully, uninhibitedly and honestly, not really caring about the outcome as long as I was creating something. In fact, I'm kind of miserable when I'm not. And you know what else? Despite this, despite the fact that I create and care about creating, I've had people telling me I'm not a game developer, not a real one. But you know what? I just keep showing up. But you already know this because you showed up and you're ready to try and maybe fail, but that's okay because you'll be doing your best. You're here, you're on the ground level, and so there is nothing I can tell you but to remind you that with humility and with surrender,
make games like a